members. He is an incredible alumni of the College of Business. Very in touch with you guys and what you're doing, what you're thinking, and he gives a lot of guidance to our dean about the direction of the college. He's also the managing partner and CEO of Simonson Road Partners, LLC, and he has invited one of his friends, and when he called me to tell me about Matt, I was like, oh my gosh, he sounds like such an amazing exchange. So Matt Mormon is the Senior Vice President of Investments with Obsessed Wealth Management, which is part of the Raymond James Financial Network. How many of you guys have heard of Raymond James? I'm sure most of you guys have. But he has a little bit of a hobby, and it actually intertwines with what he does professionally, which is very rare, and it doesn't happen often. So he's going to talk about Obsessed Garage and what he does as a financial planner as well. And how many of you guys like cars? Okay, good. Well, that's more than half. So he modifies cars, works on cars, and he actually makes a lot of money through sharing his experiences with cars with others, through YouTube and through blogs and through podcasts. And he's actually an international brand now called Obsessed Garage. So Chip is going to interview Matt up here on stage for the exchange, which I think is really cool. So come on up, guys.
This is rough being an introvert in front of a bunch of people, so let's see how this goes.
So that's two of us. So
and she called it a hobby. Oh, that those of you who watch my stuff know I don't do hobbies. Hobbies are for the weak. So
Matt, thank you on behalf of Jennifer and our dean. We really appreciate you coming out today. You just have a remarkable story. I know Matt not through cars, but his father-in-law and I used to work together, and his wife and two of my daughters played basketball together. And so I kind of got interested in what Matt was doing, and I just find the story remarkable. So I hope you do too. So Matt, let's start with, you have Obsessed Wealth and Obsessed Garage. Tell us where that obsessed part of that comes from.
It's been almost 4 years ago now. You know, I grew up as like you guys know like Hot Wheels or Matchbox cars. If you guys are into cars, you guys are a little young for that, but in my generation that was a huge thing. Well, at 7 years old, I didn't like Hot Wheels because Matchbox were superior engineered, right? And I was a kid, like I wouldn't take them out and drive them in the dirt. I would line them up and organize them and ensure that they were polished and clean, and then I would put them away. I wouldn't want my sister touching them. And so I've always been obsessed. I've been obsessed with cars. I've been obsessed with general organization, cleanliness, that kind of stuff. And it's been 4 years ago now, I was actually formally diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. Essentially, basically what happened is I was running the market for Merrill Lynch. I was a senior vice president making piles of cash at 33 years old, and I thought I was awesome. Like I thought I was the man. And I think I now know what happened is I just wigged out. You know, I just went nutty because I thought I was so cool and so awesome that I closed out most people in my life. And I think now I know that it was just me because I wasn't a type A better than you. I was a type C better than you. Like I wouldn't let anybody know that I thought I was better. I just wouldn't talk to you. And so I ended up in my garage by myself doing my own thing. I ended up in my office at Merrill Lynch. I wouldn't let anybody help me. I had 3 assistants and I wouldn't let them do anything. And so I think the weight of that came crashing down, and I had to find some help. And eventually my wife said, look, we got to go and figure this out. And so I met with a psychiatrist. They put me on some happy pills, and then the psychiatrist had me meet with a psychologist. And the psychologist said, like, look, bro, you gotta make some friends. You gotta figure out a way to get out of your own head and meet some people. And I think what he meant was go like meet your neighbor. instead what I did as a good engineer, I'm an electrical engineer by background, by education, and I made a list of how could I most efficiently go and meet the most people possible, and so I started a YouTube channel, and was making 50-minute boring videos of me washing my car and talking about life, and it's changed my life completely. So that's the story of obsession, in that I'm by nature obsessed, and now I guess formally diagnosed, and so I struggle every day, all day with, I don't have like ritualistic obsessive compulsive disorder where I close doors 50 times. It's more just obsession of not even perfection, but the future and what, you know, what I could be doing. And what I should be doing, and this, I call it a need. Like I need to wash my car. I need to learn something more about the stock market. I need, and so YouTube has become the outlet for me to just go and talk, and it's, like I said, it's changed my life. It's been pretty incredible. Yeah.
So I know we'll get back to the YouTube channel in a minute, which I think is now about 123,000 subscribers. We'll come back to that in just a minute, but let's back up, and so you go and you get some help, and they say, okay, you got to start making some friends, and you got to start doing some things. So you start this YouTube channel, you start getting some, I assume, some feedback on that?
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, people I would get, at one point I would get, and this was very early on, I've had maybe 4,000 or 5,000 subscribers, and you know, I was doing it all wrong. Like, I wasn't following the normal metrics. I wasn't like looking at when people were watching and how long they were watching. I didn't care. It wasn't about that. It was about just get it out of my head. And so where I started to gain some traction, people, because I would wash a car, but I would talk about life. And I wouldn't talk about OCD. I wouldn't talk about that yet. But I would just talk about what's going on and why I chose things, and people started to connect to that. And so then I started getting emails, personal emails or messages on YouTube saying, "Hey, can you tell me your story?" Because I hadn't told this story. I hadn't told anybody I was, an engineer. I hadn't told anybody I was a financial advisor. People just started searching me out, which is really odd for me, because this was after the not being able to get off the couch for a month and panicking, just constant panic. I was open to the possibility that maybe some people would want to hear the story, and so then people started asking the story, and that's when things really changed. So I was at Merrill Lynch. I had a huge business, and I was getting people searching me out. Like for all this time, I was trying to find people to serve and sell stuff to be an advisor to. And here all along, all I had to do was tell my story, and people would start coming to me. And so I started to gain some traction in that people reached out to me, and I was able to just do me. And then that started to connect with, I started to make the connection between doing me and business and life, and connecting it all.
I think it's a good point for all of us to understand that people see authenticity, and I know Matt's story well enough to know with what you see with Matt is what Matt is, and people react to that. At least I think they do. Has that been your experience, Matt?
Yeah, I think like if people ask me this all the time, like how do I start a YouTube channel, or how do I start a social platform and turn that into a business, and I say to them, look, if I knew what I know now, and if I tried to do it, like if I knew all of the things that I knew, I think it would flop miserably, right? I just don't think it would work. And so I think the authenticity of it, in that I didn't care what people thought. And that was a big thing, because I have a really expensive cars, and I have a nice house, and I have all these things that you're supposed to not talk about, right? In fact, my in-laws are one we talked about, or one was like, look, you don't tell people what you have, right? Because people might not have what you have, and that'll make them feel bad. But then that means that it's just a weird. I think if you approach it authentically, like you said, then it's not about showing off. It's not about any of that. It's just about sharing and letting people in.
Yeah. So let's go back to your childhood, and I think you grew up in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
So let's tell us a little bit about that and how that progressed to where you went to school and what you studied, and, and how that started to shape you.
So I grew up in Pittsburgh, just north of Pittsburgh, in southern Butler County, and my dad was a printer. They did letterhead and business cards, kind of a dying business, and so he was an engraver, and the company shut down, and we moved to Hazleton, Pennsylvania, where I went to high school. I played volleyball in college, or in high school and college. The only reason I played that, forgive me if any of you guys are volleyball players, is because I couldn't make any other team, and it was a girls' sport, so I could go, and I actually got pretty decent at it. I actually played here on the club team when I was getting my CFP and pretending like I was a student for like a semester about 10, 15 years ago. I went to high school and was a typical. I was a good student, but I didn't give a crap about studying. If I could do one thing over again, it would have show up, actually take my books home, like learn how to study. Who knows where I could have been. But I went to Villanova, and I'm contemplating whether I want to spend the money to go to the Final Four or not, but that's a whole nother story. But I went to Villanova, and I went as a computer engineer. Very quickly on, changed to electrical engineering. Electronics were kind of my thing. You know, home theater and high-end car audio was my thing, and so I ended up going to Villanova. And it's the Villanova story is how I ended up in wealth management, because I flunked fundamentals of electrical engineering 1, so I flunked it because I didn't study. I showed up for class, but I didn't study. I couldn't figure out what everybody was doing. Like I went to college, like everybody's studying. I'm like, what are you guys doing? And then I got like a 52 in the course, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. So to stay on track, you know, Villanova was at the time was $33,000 a year, and I'm a poor kid from, you know, lower middle class from central Pennsylvania, and I had to stay for the summer, and so I had to get a job. And so I went to Bally Total Fitness, and I went to Tower Records, back when these places still existed, and I went to a high-end stereo store called Bryn Mawr Stereo, and I made a real nice formal resume, and I dropped off the resume, and I ended up getting a job at that high-end stereo store. And so I went from introvert engineer, couldn't look in the eye, to learning how to sell. And so that was my education in how to sell stuff. And I don't know how far you want me to go into that story.
So when you graduated, what came next? Did you go into financial planning at that point?
Well, before I graduated, so I flunked that course, so that was my sophomore year. So between sophomore and junior year, by the way, stay in school, kids, don't flunk courses. Just it makes it much better if you get through it. But it was 2 hours away where my parents lived, and so I had to stay at Villanova in Philadelphia, and I got that job, and I went from, you know, I was a kid, I would go home, and one of my jobs was to organize dumpsters for a general contractor so he could fit more trash in it. And so I would do that over fall break or winter break. And so when I stayed and got that job selling home theater stuff and car stereo stuff, I was commissioned, so it wasn't an hourly position. And so I went from making like $80, and that's what I'd have to buy some Domino's pizza during the semester, to a commissioned position. And so I'll never forget this, my very first day, I was supposed to be part-time stock guy, to take care of making sure the TVs were in the right spot in the stock room, and part-time car stereo sales. And my very first day, I didn't know how to sell anything, I didn't know how to talk to people, but I knew all the stuff, because I wanted to buy all the stuff. And so I just started digging into I was in the room digging into the details, and some dude walks in, and he had a Jeep Grand Cherokee. This was 1999, and it was brand new, and he looked like a pretty successful dude. And I just started talking to him about what I wanted to buy. Like, if I had a Jeep Grand Cherokee, what would I buy? And so we went through, I didn't know I was doing this, but I was taking him from the top down, top down selling. I was telling him about the best, and then the next best, and the next best. And we ended up shooting somewhere toward the high end, and so I thought I was just teaching him about the stuff, and at the end of it, he says, okay, I'll take it. I'm like, okay, cool. And I didn't know what that meant. I was like, all right, this is like $5,000 stereo. And so I went over to the guy who was in charge. I said, look, this guy wants to buy this, and started rattling off all the stuff. This is literally like my first hour of my first day. I couldn't make this up. And so the store manager comes over, and he's talking to me while they're writing it up. And he's like, well, what the heck just happened here? I said, well, I don't know. I just told the dude what I wanted to buy, and he bought it. And we made 16% of the profit, so $5,000. The profit was roughly 40, so it was $2,000 in profit. So you guys do the math. What did I make? 400 bucks, yeah. Like that. It was like an awakening. Like, holy crap! Like there's no end to this. Like, I can make whatever I make. And so at Villanova, my junior year, so I'm 19 years old, and I think I made 52,000 bucks that year. And this was 1999, so this was a pile of cash. Now, I didn't pay off my student loans. I bought a Civic Si, put a $30,000 stereo in it, bought some big screen TVs. So my on-campus apartment, I had a 65-inch. Remember rear projections? Like your dad had this giant rear projection TV. Well, I had one in my dorm room. So I was like a drug dealer all of a sudden.
Sony XBR,
you got it. Yeah. So when I graduated college, my buddies were going to work for Lockheed or Unisys and being engineers doing AutoCAD and things like that. And I'm making like 75 grand doing the coolest freaking thing in the world. Like, I'm selling stuff that I dreamt of even touching or being in the same room as, and now I'm able to buy it and use it and play with it all day. And so when I graduated, I decided I was going to move to Orlando, and that's when, you guys remember Sound Advice before they went out of business. So I came to Orlando, and I worked by the Florida Mall, and so I'd worked my way up here to be, I was #1 in Orlando in sales, and that's when a dude came in my store from Merrill Lynch and said, I sold him a home theater, and he said, man, you'd be good at doing what I do. I was making about 100 grand, so I'm 22, making 100,000 bucks. And this was the start of me thinking I'm the man, right? Yeah. And I'm selling the coolest stuff in the world. And a guy from Merrill Lynch came in, and that's another story if you want me to tell that.
So we'll move forward a little bit. So you make the move to Merrill Lynch. You start in the wealth management thing. You start having some success in that because you're obsessed, and you focus in and you start building assets under management. You start growing your book of business. You start growing that, and you have nice cars, and this moment happens where everything kind of comes to a halt. Mm-hmm. And you come in, and now you got to get out of your own head, as you put it, and come through. So you start this YouTube channel as a way to do that. And if you're like me, who's had nice cars for most of my life and drive a really nice car, I joked with Matt today, until I watched Matt's video, I never knew that I was washing my car wrong. That there's a right way to wash your car and to take care of it. And so people start reacting. So when do you put, gosh, there's a business here, together with this engagement?
Only as of recent. So I figure I started making videos in 2014. August of 2014 is when I started making videos, and I started Obsessed Garage Store in January of 17. So only recently here, and because the whole time I was just doing it because it's just something to do, something to stay out of my own head. But what I started to recognize, and this happened at Merrill Lynch, and part of the reason why I left Merrill Lynch, again, there's probably a bull tattooed on my soul somewhere. I was Mr. Merrill Lynch, right? I would recruit people. I'd be here trying to find you guys to come work for the company because I thought it was such a great business, a great place to be. And so when I had this awakening and this opening up to the world, I started to get some pushback, because in the world of finance, the world of providing financial advice, you have to report to the SEC and FINRA, and you have to be compliant, and you have to disclose, income and things you're making. And so I don't know if most of you probably know that YouTube, you have ads and then you get paid something. So after you get a certain amount of views, then you get your first $100 and then they pay you. And so I had to submit an outside business activity report. And so then that opened up the floodgates of now compliance and started watching all my videos. I think they secretly liked them, but they started watching all my videos, and at some point I'd made videos of my life story, some of the story that I'm telling you I made videos on just to get people off my back, because everybody's asking me, how do I get a blue GT3? How do I get an M3? How do I get these things? And so Merrill Lynch started censoring me. They said, look, you can't say this. You can't say that you made cold calls. You can't say that you made $40,000 when we hired you. So why not? It's the truth. It's the real. I mean, that's the authentic. I mean, this is what I'm trying to do here. And so the eye-awakening moment is I got a call and they made me take down about half of my videos, and I got a call the next day from Merrill Lynch Marketing in New York. And they said to me, and I started yelling at them immediately because I thought they were calling to yell at me some more. They said, no, we're calling to figure out, what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean, what are you doing? He said, well, MerrillLynch.com, and then you have your group. It was the SMH, the Sailor Mormon Heaton group. You have this web page, and you guys are getting a massive amount of hits. She says, I don't know if you know this, but Taylor Swift's dad works for Merrill Lynch. So Taylor Swift's dad was #1, and we were #2, like right behind him. And everybody else was tens of thousands of hits below. And they said, what are you doing to get people to search? Now, keep in mind, I never mentioned Merrill Lynch in my YouTube videos. I didn't have any links. I didn't tell anybody about it. People were Google searching Matt Mormon, who is this goof making car videos, and what does he do for a living? And so then people were making this direct correlation. I was like, holy crap. I mean, people are connecting the dots to say, hey, if this guy cares this much about car shampoo, what does he do for a living? And then people started to make this connection, and I started getting calls saying, hey, I have this 401k, or hey, I generally only deal with wealthier people, but I'm happy to help anybody. But I started to get wealthier people calling me and saying, hey, I need some help with this or that, or I inherited some money, or I'm retiring. And so that's when the light bulb clicked. I said, holy crap. I mean, I may never have to make another cold call or mailer or horrible other marketing thing again. I might just be able to do me and people will show up. And so that was when the epiphany happened. So that would have been mid-2015 when it clicked. Like, holy cow, this could be something.
So that progresses, and then in 2017, you start the Obsessed Garage store.
So what happened there was another, like all these things happen by accident, I think. Right place, right work ethic, right time. But I had set up Amazon affiliate links, right? So in the videos, I would use 12 products, and then people would make in the comments to say, well, what products did you use? You got to make a list. And so then I finally started making lists. And in order to, instead of making a list in every video, I just build obsessedgarage.com. I wanted to call it that'sjunk.com, but I couldn't get that URL. I'm glad I couldn't, because that probably wouldn't have worked out so well. So obsessedgarage.com, and I organized all the products I'm using on a website. And me being obsessed, I made a pretty legit website. And I started to get a legitimate amount of hits at the website. And I was like, holy cow, this is cool. And so then I put links to Amazon so I could get Amazon affiliate money. And I'm like, wow, maybe I can make a few $100 here. This is great. Get $100 from YouTube AdSense. Maybe I make $100 doing a month. I mean, that's a couple $100. That's pretty sweet. Well, the Amazon affiliate links started generating like $3,000 a month. I was like, holy crap, this is insane. And so I started that, let's say early 2000, or I guess that would have been early 2016. I made some T-shirts that some of you guys have, and I made a store. But I wasn't going to sell any of these detailing products or garage flooring or cabinets. I was just going to send out links because I didn't think there were any margins in it. And I went to SEMA, the big show in Las Vegas, and the day I came back, and I made all these relationships with all these companies, and I said, yeah, I'm sending all these links to Amazon, this is great. Amazon shut my account down. Someone hacked it or something like that, and so then my $3,000 a month is gone. And then that was another epiphany, like, holy cow, I'm building my house on somebody else's land. Like, Amazon can just say no whenever the heck they wanted to. And so I made a few calls to, I have this pressure washer that I've been using for years. It's a $1,200, 80-pound German pressure washer. You can't do anything but wash your car with it. It's not powerful enough, but it's perfect for washing a car. And I knew that other people wanted that. But this company, first of all, I'd been pronouncing their name wrong for like 15 years. They did such a poor job marketing the product that no one even knew how to pronounce their name. Everybody calls it Kranzel. It's Krenzla. And so I called Kranzel, and he said, no, it's Krenzla. I said, well, shoot, you need to let me sell your stuff. And they said no. And so then I asked them again, can I sell your stuff? They said no. And I said, well, maybe we can let's just try 5 of them. And then I finally got the right guy, and he said yes. So I bought 5 pressure washers, 15 of the guns that I'd curated, because I'd curated all these products from all over the world, and I've been using it because I'm obsessed, right? And so that very first month, in January of 2017, last year, I made like 13 videos of each part and piece. I lost 4,000 subscribers. Everybody said I've jumped the shark, and you're stupid, and you're bald, and you're an idiot. And I said, yeah, you're right, but you know, I think this thing's pretty cool. And the next morning I woke up, I had 200 emails in my inbox, people saying, I want that, I want that. They didn't even know how much it was. And so I think I sold $52,000 worth of pressure washers that first month, and then 60, and then 80, and then I started adding some other things. This month I'm at $232,000 in sales of like the coolest stuff in the world to a car guy. And I'm just making videos about it, and people are buying it. I think my margins are somewhere around 32, 33%, so you do the math. It's pretty significant, and it's growing faster than I can handle. My parents are doing all the shipping and stuff for me. So that was the jump the shark moment, and that people want to buy this stuff. A lot of the stuff you can't buy anywhere. Like a lot of it's commercial grade stuff that like you can't just go online and buy it. So I'm giving people the opportunity, and it's pretty cool. So through this, you've gotten to meet some really interesting people. And I know a lot of them, but one of the most fascinating to me is when you got to meet Jay Leno. So tell the Jay Leno story for us. So I had met the lowest man on the totem pole, the guy who like washes the cars for Jay, Chris, who now has kind of been promoted. So he was a fan of mine, and said, hey, we're launching this new Jay Leno product line. I'm like, yeah, I'm not interested in that. It's gonna be some Walmart crap. I'm not buying that stuff. And he was persistent, and so then I eventually had him on my podcast, and we talked about the Jay Leno product line, and then they invited me out to go see Jay Leno. Now, again, remember, I'm obsessive compulsive disorder. I don't like to travel. I just want to stay at home by myself in my garage. And I got to fly across the country for a 2-hour event at Jay's garage. I'm like, I don't want to do that. But there's something about the whole theme of what's been happening is, you know, put yourself out there and something might happen. And so it's something that's just weighing on me. Like, I think I should go. Like, I think I should probably go check this out. And so I go, and I take an Uber there, and I'm like walking in, and everybody else knows everybody. It's all press, and I'm like, I don't belong. And one of those other guys is another YouTuber. He's like all up in Jay's face the whole time, and I'm like in the background, like, I don't belong here. What am I doing here? And so we do the tour of the event, and I'm hanging out with the guys that clean the cars, right? So I'm with the janitors per se, and so. By the end of it, I'm standing out on the corner trying to get an Uber because I couldn't get a signal. I'm trying to get the heck out of here. And Jay comes pulling up in his 1906 Stanley Steamer. And so here I'm like, I don't want to be there. I think he could smell the authentic on me, and he's like, hey, come get in. And I'm probably the only human in the world that was thinking like, I don't know if I want to get in this thing. Like everybody else would have been begging him to ride. And so we were doing 70 in this car with like basically no brakes down a 4-lane highway. He's blowing the steam. I'm asking him questions like, hey, you know, what happens, you know, how are the brakes in this thing? He's like, not good. And I'm like, I'm freaking out. I'm holding the camera, and I'm like, I have to hold the camera on this. And so the guy who doesn't want to be there, the guy who just is in the background, probably the only guy that was questioning whether or not you'd ride in the darn thing. The video's on YouTube, and here I am riding shotgun with Jay Leno, and it wasn't like 2 minutes. It was like an hour, like 45 minutes. We go all the way down. The thing stops working. We're working on it. It was crazy. And so I think that's the general theme of my life these days, is just put it out there, show up to something like this and tell your story, and things just happen. It's incredible. It's crazy.
So I know what this has done for you business-wise, right? What's it done for you on a relational level and a personal level, and you know, what this means to Matt?
I don't know. It's hard because I'm an extreme guy, right? So that it's all or nothing. You know, it's kind of my tagline, all or nothing. And so now I have to fight. So now the disorder is going from no friends to too many friends, and then I want to please everybody and everything and everyone. And so I end up in the periphery instead of at home base, right? And so luckily my wife is a saint. She brings me back to center, and so I have to come back to center. And the hardest part is, and I talked about this earlier, is the need. Like I need to put this in the store. I need to make sure that I learn this person's name. I need, instead of just enjoying it. And so the most difficult part for me of the relationship of the people that have entered my life is knowing when it's appropriate to go back to home base. And so the all or nothing thing is the really, really difficult part for me to manage, you know, of this whole thing. But it's cool. I mean, it's pretty neat that I'm standing here in front talking to you guys. It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
So the YouTube channel, I think if I didn't say, I think it's about 124,000 subscribers.
I've done everything in my power to make sure that I turn as many people off as possible. Yeah, it probably could be more if I wasn't me, right? If I faked it a little and smiled a little more and, you know, danced around and played some EDM and stuff like that, it would probably be better. But I'm just gonna, you know, I've been fighting that. So, but yeah, 123,000. Interesting. The YouTube channel is just, it's the top, what I call the top of my funnel. It's my way to connect with people. It's my way to put myself out there, and like I follow up on every comment, and whether I'm fighting them or not. But you know, you guys have seen me fight back some people that do say stupid stuff. But yeah.
So you've got this big base, and we talked about it a little bit, but all of a sudden you realize that, you know, if you can afford to buy a $1,500 Kransler pressure cleaner package and all the products and the polishers and all the things that go with it to take care of your car, you probably got a pretty nice ride.
Generally, yeah. Yeah. Or you really value the one that you have. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And nice rides are really expensive. Mm-hmm. And so I think you kind of made this connection that, you know, and I think you alluded to it earlier, but this tie strategically between Obsessed Garage and Obsessed Wealth, and how that feeds into your, you know, core business of, you know, managing money for people.
Things about passion, right?
Yeah.
Passion marketing, or marketing through what you're passionate about, and then it becomes naturally authentic, right? And I think that's, you know, a lot of you guys, I think that's kind of your generation's dream, right? Is to be able to chase your dreams and not work that menial task job just to collect a paycheck. It's to do something that you believe in and you're passionate about. And I'd be lying if I just told you guys the story like this all happened by accident. But I think the key is figuring out how to take passion and not force it down people's throats, but to see when there's an opportunity to hopefully be wise enough to know when it's kicking you in the head, you know. So passion can lead to results, I think.
And one of the most fascinating things to me is if you go out there and Google how to start a YouTube channel, or how to start a blog, or how to start a podcast. You'll get, you know, 8,000 results if somebody wants to sell you a course that has a prescription, right? Do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. You know, you gotta post consistently. You gotta, you know, every Monday you gotta drop a post,
I don't do that.
And the interesting thing to me with Matt is you don't do any of that, right? You break all the rules. Your format's long, right? Generally.
Yeah.
So, you know, I listened to a podcast the other day, and it was just you talking. I think it was an hour and 15 or 20 minutes. You know, there was nothing tight or concise about it. Your YouTube videos can be 4 or 5 minutes on a product, or an hour and 30 minutes on how to do a particular thing in a car. I think there's a great lesson in all of this for this, is that rules are meant to be broken. And there's a lot of ways to do things, and it's not always the way somebody would prescribe to you.
Yeah, I agree with that. Probably a lot of you guys know, my buddy Adam LZ went to school here and he's about to hit 2 million followers, and he's very strategic about when and how, and it's probably why he has 2 million followers, and he has broad appeal. But his way of doing it is completely opposite of mine. Our businesses, I think my business does a little more than his does. His YouTube channel does a zillion dollars more, but there's no real one way to do it. But I think the key is, I mean, that's him. That's authentically him. Is, you know, going back to this argument of passion and authenticity. If you do it authentically, YouTube might not be your thing. I mean, not everybody's going to be able to do it.
Right.
You know, I shouldn't be able to do it. I don't know why anybody watches it, but if it clicks, it clicks. And a lot of times you'll know. You know, but it doesn't have to be, like you say, how to start a podcast. It has to be, I think, you. And then if you figure out how to be authentic with it, then it can lead to something. It's all because business is just an excuse to be in relationship, and that's all it is. I mean, no matter where you're at in business, it's without, without, you can go and look at any high-rise building of any of the major corporations on the wall here, and if you take the people out, if you take the relationship out, it's just a building, right? And so what I figured out and stumbled on is to figure out a way to make relationships with people and do it in a larger scale. And it's way better than the other way I did it.
You know, of all the things I've watched and done and absorbed from you, that concept, and we've run our business on that concept for years, but I've never been able to describe it, right, about the importance of relationships. And, you know, for me, you've inspired me to get out of my head. My OCD comes out in a different way than yours does, but you know, that at the end of the day, I think you found, and if you disagree with this, please say that, but I think that what comes out to me is that you've realized that life isn't worth living if you don't have points of connection.
Yeah, I hid behind this, like, I thought I wanted to be, just to back up a little bit, in wealth management, I had a team, so I had 2 partners. I was the introvert engineer, so I thought, right? And then the other guy was the rainmaker. He would go out and make the relationships with the people. And so I thought my destiny was to be an analyst. Like, I wanted to analyze portfolios, I wanted to construct them, I wanted to perform the calculations. I went out and I have 9 designations from, CFP and SEMA, so I went out and educated myself. And what this has taught me is that you don't have to, like, I thought a relationship in wealth management was golfing and polos, and I thought it was something that, it doesn't have to be that. It can be, the relationship can be whatever fits. And so the big discovery for me in the relationship aspect of things has been, if you figure out, and it may take you some time to do this, but if you can figure out who you are. And the biggest thing for me is I thought I knew exactly who I was. What I figured out is I really don't know who I am, and that's what's opened it up. When I came to terms that I'm this weirdo, and that's cool, instead of trying to squeeze myself into some box, it's opened up to a relationship. Because before it was just me, the whole time. And now it's about, I think of it as us, it's people. Yeah. Which is hard for me to fathom.
It's hard if you're an introvert. It really is.
Yeah, yeah.
So, if you had a few minutes for sage advice for the younger Matt,
Yeah,
and for those here,
that's tricky because I can relate to this probably more than anyone, but I want everything now. Like, I want it right this second. We were talking about the little bit of this in the back. And so you guys, you graduate from college, you want it now. Like, I want to make $300,000 today. I want to own my own business. What were you saying, the statistics, like 60% of rising seniors or graduating college students want to own their own business. I think you need to be careful with that. I'm 38 years old. If I tried to start this business at 22, I'm not my buddy Adam LZ, who started a business at 20 or 19. He just had it. So I would urge people not to force it. And you're still going to have to do some really sucky stuff along the way. Like when I started at Merrill Lynch, I made 400 cold call dials a day, and it was like the worst thing in the world. Like, I would have rather jumped off the roof head first than to do that. So I think there's going to be, for each one of you, I think there's going to be a crossroads at some point. Hopefully it's not freaking out on the couch, right? So hopefully it's not some mental disorder. Hopefully it's something a little simpler for you. But I think there's going to be a crossroads, and that crossroads doesn't have to be at 21. It doesn't have to be at 25. It doesn't even have to be at 40. It can be somewhere later in life. I think the key is being authentic, doing you, not making excuses for who you are, but figuring out when those opportunities happen and being open to it, and not expecting it to happen immediately, and expecting to do some work. You're gonna have to, jump in some dumpsters and organize some stuff in order to get to where you want to get to. I think that if I could tell the younger me, I would have told me to study more, right? Because that would have made life a little easier. And I would have told me to, hey, be patient, because it'll come. Yeah.
And I think, as the gray-haired, long-haired, gray-haired guy in the room, one of the things I've learned from Matt is, it's never too late to open up. As you go through your life, you can open up today, you can open up tomorrow, you can learn today, you can learn tomorrow, but, tackle the world with your arms out. Well, Matt, if you're willing, I think what I'd like to do is open the room to some questions, and let you all have a part in the conversation here with Matt. So if you have a question, just...
What broke on Leno's car?
It's funny because the question was what broke on Jay Leno's car. It was a 1906 steam engine. The really unique thing about Jay's garage, there are, I think it was 178 cars there. Every single car there, like, just walk up, start instantly. So he has a staff does, whether he's driven it 3 years ago or yesterday, every car needs to start. And so I could see it on him. Like, they went to fire up, he wanted to show the steam and hit the thing, and it didn't fire up. And so we're in the middle of this tour, and he just shuts her down. And so everybody's sitting there watching him. Next thing you know, his denim shirt's untucked, and he's laying on the ground. And then next thing you know, they're towing the car into the steam engine bay. And so, I don't know, the pilot wouldn't light. And the way a steam engine works is there's a big tank, and then it builds pressure. And I think that he said it's like 1,600 PSI or something like that of boiling water in front of your face, right? It's like literally like you're sitting here and the bucket is right there of boiling water. And so it wouldn't fire up. And so you could see it on him. He was just freaking out internally. And so this is Friday night at like 5 o'clock, and then all hands on deck. The one guy was complaining. He's like, you could just see it. He's like, I'm gonna be here all night, because Jay was gonna keep them all late when they want to get the heck out of there. So that's what happened. And that's why he wanted to go around the block to get it running again. And then that's why I'm standing on the corner, and he goes, hey, and I'm like, me? And he's like, yeah, come on, jump in. And I was like, okay, and I did it. So that's the story of what happened.
When you were selling AV stuff, what was your favorite speaker brand for like home stuff, not car stuff?
The question was about what was my favorite speaker stuff for home audio. I'm generally a British speaker guy. Dyne Audio is my favorite monitor audio.
Like Bowers?
I've never been a huge fan of B&W. They're great, like B&W Nautilus. I have monitor audio. Right now I have what do I have? I have Revel speakers in my home theater. I have a dedicated theater at my house. That was always one of my dreams, to have a dedicated theater. Now I have it and I never use it, so be careful with dreams, people. I also have an S2000 I spent 80 grand on that I don't want anymore, because it's, you know, you get what you want and then it's not all it's cracked up to be.
Be careful what you wish for. You might get it. Yeah.
The lesson I'm learning is the pursuit, right? So yeah, Monitor Audio is probably my favorite speaker company, or Dine Audio.
What are some tenets you have for people, just the basic finance, for people's personal finances and stuff?
So the question is, what's some basic tenets of personal finance? I think I'm a complicated dude, right? And I like complicated stuff. I like complicated problems. But a lot of what I coach my clients on, there's a certain sense of beauty and simplicity or beauty in keeping things simple. So taking complex topics and simplifying it. And so most of what I've spent my career doing is creating systems in order to organize and keep it simple. And I don't know, we could probably get on it. If I was in here 3 months ago and we talked about Bitcoin, you guys would get all excited. Some of you probably took out a credit card to go buy some of it. That gets really complicated. It gets really hard to manage. And so the basic tenets for me are, when let's say you guys start your job, you become an engineer, you become a doctor, you become a lawyer, you become a marketing agency professional, you start your job, you're making $35,000. Step one is 401k. 401k is where you put your money in. You want to put as much money as possible. And so the goal, you can put $18,000 a year into a 401k. And if you do that at 22, the power of having that early, this is pretty simple stuff. So your parents have been telling you your whole life, put that money in there. The more you put in, the earlier, the more compounding you have. And you don't have to get cute. You don't have to be an expert day trader in order to do that. You can create a system around it. So 401k, after your 401k is maxed out, which will usually take most people several years, especially if you come out with some student loans, you'd have to pay that off, pay off debt, max out your 401k, and then you call me, and then I tell you what to do. And then I start helping you manage brokerage accounts and things like that. But the biggest mistake people make is they overcomplicate things. I'm a maniac. I've been telling you guys the story of how much of a maniac I am. I'm obsessed with personal finance and the mathematics behind buying, purchasing fixed income securities. If you ask me, what do you think about Tesla? I say, I don't think about Tesla. You say, well, what do you think about Kimberly-Clark or GE, or what stock should I buy? I'd say, I'm obsessed. I don't know. I don't know how to buy a stock. So what I coach most people to do is, let's build a system around picking your investments instead of trying to get smart, instead of being too cute with things. A lot of clients will go and say, well, I was in Walmart's parking lot, it was filled with people, so I'm going to buy the stock. Well, we don't know the inner workings of the balance sheet of the company, and so most people, I spend the time, again, simplifying things. Let's create a mathematical discipline, and let's invest in you. So go and work in your business, create a corporation, create a good career, go out and make money, and then we'll invest in something simpler. So siphon money off of you, because you are going to generate the best return. Your business is going to generate the best return. Don't chase it on things like Bitcoin or Tesla or whatever the hottest thing is. I typically coach people, let's stick to the basics. Good question. Anybody else have anything?
Somebody else?
What new upcoming car excites you the most right now?
It's funny. I've been struggling with this because most new cars have transitioned to turbo, right? To forced, some sort of forced induction or some either supercharged or turbocharged. The problem with that is then they sound like crap. And part of the thing that gets me going is the experience, right? I'm too much of a pansy to go really fast. I go to the track, I just can't handle it. I'm too wound too tightly. So if I want to go on a back road like in the Carolina mountains, and just drive like 50 miles an hour. And so the emotive part, the sound, the connectivity, the way the car drives. So what I'm attempting to get right now is Porsche 911 GT3 RS is my car. I drove my RS here, but I want the new one. And so the goal with Porsche or Ferrari or McLaren is to stay on the front of the wave. Maybe not so much McLaren, because a lot of these cars are hard to get. And so if you stay on the front of the newest car, then you don't lose any money. Sometimes you make a few bucks. I'm always on the end of the wave and getting killed every time I buy a car. But E92 M3 would be another car I'd like to get, the V8 M3, which I've had in the past. But I'm a Porsche guy. Porsche is the mechanical representation of me as a flawed human. You know, the engine's in the back. It's a flawed car, but it's awesome. You know, no, I'm not awesome. Let me rephrase that. You know what I'm saying, right? So yeah, GT3 RS is my car. So the new 991.2 is the car I'm trying to get. You'd think being such a big Porsche enthusiast and ambassador on YouTube, they'd let me have one. Like I can't buy one. Like I want to give them my money and I can't find a spot. It's crazy, craziness. Yeah. Any other questions?
Anybody else? Yes.
What made you leave your job selling stereos where you were like interacting with real customers to going somewhere where you were making cold calls?
Oh, that was brutal, man. And I second guessed that the whole time. A guy came in my store, mentioned that. He was, his name was Jim, and he kept pushing me, said you'd be great at doing this. And so I started searching, you know, and say, well, what does that mean? What do you do as a financial advisor? I don't know anything about finance. All I know how to do is spend money. I don't know how to save money. And so he, funny story, that what pushed me over the edge to make that leap, we bought, it was like a few $1,000 TV, and we had interest refinancing at the time. So it was like same as cash, interest refinancing. And so I said, hey, would you like to take advantage of that? And he said, yeah, sure, you know, free money, I'll open up a credit app. And so we fill up the app, and then the bottom right-hand corner. So again, he's convincing me. I'm making 100 grand doing cool stuff. I'm like, I don't think I want to do that. But I was intrigued because he was a really smart guy. And what put me over the edge is he wrote, and this is going to sound really bad, but in the bottom right-hand corner, you had to write what your income was. And it was either monthly or annually, and you're supposed to circle it. Well, he didn't circle monthly or annually. So I had to ask him. I said, is that per month or per year? And he said, no, that's per month. And I was like, oh, this was a big number. I was like, holy crap. I took his car, and then I started the pursuit to get a job. So I was 23 and a half. And Merrill Lynch doesn't hire 23-year-olds. So, you know, get your hopes up if you're going to graduate college and go be a financial advisor. It's a tough road. Imagine convincing like your parents to give you their life savings to be responsible for. They're going to tell you to get lost. And so every person you encounter, you're going to be going to your grandparents and pretending like you know what you're talking about, and they're going to tell you no. So Merrill Lynch wouldn't hire me, wouldn't hire me. And so finally, after 12 interviews, complete humiliation every time. I had a suit that didn't fit, you know, some purple tie and a black shirt or something goofy. And so they wouldn't hire me. They kept telling me to come back. And so they finally hired me. And so, I've been transparent with you guys. So I was making, you know, 110,000 bucks selling cool TVs and things like that. To my first day at Merrill Lynch, I took a $40,000 salary. They called me the first week and said, Mr. Mormon, you can't make $40,000. You have to make $39,999 and 99 cents, just to kick me right where you know. And so it was obviously the best decision I ever could have made, because the cold call part was horrible. But the magic of it was the ability to be able to sit with someone and dump knowledge. I've realized this in my 38 years on this earth, that what I really enjoy is not the money, it's not making money. Money is just a result of doing something. The thing that the reason why I'll make the cold calls and clean the toilets if I have to is because I want to sit in front of someone, I want to discuss something complicated and provide some value. I don't want to help them, and that would be advice that I have to everybody, is that people don't want to be helped, but what I have is a value, And the value to me from them is the time. And so we're exchanging that value, right? And so the reason why I made all these cold calls was so that I could provide that value exchange, because that's what gets me going. And then the affirmation or the validation is the money that I get paid. They pay me as a result. And so same thing's happening with YouTube, same thing if I post something on Instagram, same thing with wealth management, is that ability to be able to, that drug, that ability to take all of this knowledge, take what I believe my place is in this world, and then teach somebody something. It's the reason why I think you go and you do whatever grunt work you're going to have to do that all of you guys are getting ready to do. You know, as you graduate, you're going to have to clean some dumpsters, organize some dumpsters. And so I think the earlier you can figure out what your thing is, where your value exchange is, the more successful you'll be. And so you'll make the cold calls if you can identify the value. I thought the value for me was money. I thought if people hired me that I'd be able to make money. But that really isn't what it was about. It was about the ability to provide that value exchange. And the money was just a measuring stick. So.
Well, thank you. We're going to, Matt will hang around for a little bit, I'm sure, and if you want to talk to him individually. Matt, I want to thank you. One of the best things you can do in life is make a difference to somebody else. And you've made a difference to me, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. What happens when the force pulls you back, your foot naturally comes off the gas. You have to keep your foot to the floor, to the floor, to the floor.